Hi guys, welcome back to another video on the channel, and welcome to episode 4 of Masking in Darktable. Yes, and today we're going to look at parametric masking. Yes, we are. The nearest thing that you've got to parametric masking in the likes of Lightroom is point color. And seriously? Parametric masking makes point color in Lightroom look a real Mickey Mouse affair. It really does. So anyway, let's crack on. So without any further ado, I think we better head off over not to this image, but to a rather boring color TIFF, color chart, if you like, so I can actually show you the full meanings of parametric masking. So parametric masking, take no notice of this histogram up here because it just looks crazy. We'll just put it over there so it doesn't look quite so bad. But here you can see we've got red, yellow, green, cyan and blue blocks, but they fade in saturation as they go from the bottom to the top. So let's now just go and let's go grab a color balance RGB module and let's scroll down and let's invoke parametric masking. We are going in the next couple of videos to look at combining parametric masking with drawn masks. But for now, we're going to refrain from doing that and just look at parametrics in isolation. You'll be surprised. So let's open up the parametric channels and let's go and have an explore, shall we? So here you can see we've got our parametric grey channel, red channel, green channel, blue channel. Greys, forget it for the time being, but red, green and blue should be fairly self-explanatory. JZ, because we are in a scenery third workflow, so JZ equals brightness, lightness, luminosity, call it what you want. It's how black is something or how white is something. And basically, if we hold down the C key, there we go. So that is the JZ parametric channel. What about CZ? Because CZ is saturation. So let's click on CZ and let's hold down the C key, and there you can see differences in saturation. And then of course we've got hue, and hover over the scale, hold down the C key, and there you go. So that is our image broken up into hues. Right, so let's just say, for instance, that we wanted to select all the greens in this image. So what we could do is go and get the range tool, and we draw a little box in there, whoop-de-doo, rather like that. Let's activate the mask, and we can see we've got a pretty good selection of the greens. Okay, but if I only wanted to see the saturated greens, or I only wanted to affect the saturated greens, then how am I going to do that? Because yes, there is a natural fall off in the mask density here because of the fall off of saturation of the greens. But what happens if I wanted to leave the undersaturated greens unaffected? If we wanted to leave that where it is, so that's got our colour range selection just for the greens, and then we come over to CZ, which is saturation. What happens if we remove, remember this is undersaturated, this is fully saturated. So what happens if we remove the undersaturated colours? Okay, and we can keep going, and now you can start to see them disappearing. Okay, now then, we've got a bit of a problem, because if you look at our cutoff values here on the scale, we are 0.99 to 1.0 selected. Now remember, mask selected, mask value 1. Mask unselected, mask value 0. We've got a very hard edge mask here which isn't really doing the job we want it to. Now here is head trip number whatever it is. Doesn't matter what aspect of masking in Darktable you look at, you are going to come up against a head trip. And here is our primary head trip with parametric masking. When we get into a situation like this, we have this slider here called boost factor. Right? If you look in the manual tells you that in a mask where we've got a mask density of 1, that area is fully selected and will be fully affected by any module adjustment that we happen to put in. So far you've been led to believe that the highest mask value you can have is 1. Oh no. Oh no. Watch what happens when I move this boost factor. So if I move the boost factor slider to the right, you can see that my low cutoff point, because remember this is no masking, this is fully masked, 0.99, but no longer are we at a maximum value of 1.0, we can go to a maximum value of 4.1, and that's just with 2.25 EV dialed in as a boost factor. So what we can now do is we can really begin to ramp up our selection, and look at that through a feathery edge. We could even take it further, okay, and it's just mad. So look at that for a selection. Now then, here's the thing, what happens if I change my mind and I want to adjust the undersaturated greens? We are using 2 parametric channels at the moment, hue, okay, and its polarity is positive. We are also using CZ or saturation, and our polarity is positive. Watch what happens though if I select negative polarity. Oh, now I'm looking at the undersaturated greens. Oh my lord. I mean, honestly, it gets really crazy. Absolutely crazy. And if we bring down the boost factor and then we play around with these sliders, we can change our attention basically to the undersaturated greens. We could then turn off the mask and we could say, right, I am going to do a hue shift on the undersaturated greens and I'm going to make them more yellow. We could increase the global vibrance of the undersaturated greens. We could change the global chroma of the undersaturated greens, and we can change the lightness, and we could also bring down the global brilliance. And so look at the effect we can have there. I mean, it's just madness. So let's head off over to here, and this is our end point for the raw file. And how does this raw file start out? Well, it starts out looking like that. And I will just switch back to the waveform, and where we're heading is this image here, or this version of the image, where we've brought light and contrast to the flowers. We've brought light and contrast to the greenery, but with different modules and different settings based on one parametric channel, maybe two. I'm also going to apply the settings to this linear DNG that we've created, or that I've created earlier from that very raw file in DxO Pure Raw 5, and it really does do a very good job of integrating with Darktable, as I've said on many occasions before. And you know, for noise reduction, I mean, it is brilliant, but everything else is actually done inside Darktable. But I will show you how to do noise reduction on this as a two-step process inside a Darktable as well. So I think we better crack on, don't you? Okay guys, so let's get going. And of course the first thing I've got to do in order to keep everything sorted, because parametrics works on, a lot of the time it works on colour, so we've got to get our white balance right. Now I shot this at 1100 ISO and it's shot with a Nikon 180-600 VR at 600mm. It's shot pretty much wide open, so it's shot at its poorest level of performance from a sharpness point of view. But we've got to get the white balance right first. I always have my cameras set to a customized white balance of cloudy B-1, and that equates to cloudy, which is generally accepted as 6500. Darktable seems to think it's different, but the B-1 bit is basically a 200 Kelvin blue shift. It's all to do with personal preference and my eyesight when I'm looking at images on the back of the camera when I'm out in the field. Yeah, so you don't have to do that, but it equates to 6700. Now, from a colour temperature point of view, a 6500 to 6700 Kelvin shift is what you call a 5 myrad shift, or to be honest, it's a -5 myrad shift. And the nice thing about Darktable is we can actually directly replicate that, because I can go to cloudy and suddenly I get a fine tune in myrads. So I can come down here and just take that back one. There we go. and there's a -5 myriad shift, and that looks absolutely fine by me. Right, so let's crack on with parametric masking. So what do I want to do? I'm going to come over to Color Balance RGB, as I inevitably do, and I'm going to open parametric masking. And what is it that I want to mask? I want to make a mask of the flowers, because I want to make the flowers brighter. I want to make the greens brighter, but because the flowers are so saturated, I need to add a different level of brightness to the flowers than I do to the rest of the image. So what I'm going to do is engage my clipping indicators. I'm going to right click and change it from luminance only to full gamut. Alrighty, just so you'll see what's going on. And I am going to just scroll up a bit. I'm going to go to global brilliance, and we'll turn up the global brilliance, and then suddenly it'll start going red. Clipping indicators. Now then, are those clipping indicators due to luminosity? Yes, they are, because if we look at the waveform, we can see that we've got peaks above the limit of the highlight clipping. So what can we do about that little problem? Well, first of all, what we can do is just bring down the highlight brilliance, yeah, and what I might do is also bring down the shadows brilliance, so that all I'm affecting in the flowers, pretty much, even though I've got global brilliance turned up, we're only seeing it for the majority of cases, for the midtones. But I want to isolate that adjustment to just the flowers. So what are we going to do? I'm going to come to HZ, the hue channel, and I'm just going to get my little selector, and I'm just going to draw a little box in there, and it will go like that. Okay, and we will go and visualize said mask, and you can see said mask has got some dark bits in it, and it has also got hues in there and tones in there and degrees of saturation in there that I don't really want incorporated into this selection. So how can we begin to clean this selection up? Well, the first thing I need to do is to look at the actual range of colours that are selected, and I need to select a little bit more on the green side, open this selection out at the top, a little bit like that, and now I've got a pretty good selection of just the flowers. But I need to come into CZ, which remember is saturation, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the colours which are less saturated than those inside the flower. And so, as you can see, as I move the slider up, yep, I have now successfully removed pretty much everything from the selection other than the flowers. I'm going to just back off a little bit like that. Okay, and we can see I've still got nothing selected apart from the flowers, but the flowers aren't properly selected in the centres, because the centres of the flowers have got quite a bit of green bias to them. So what we are going to do is come into a 100% view. What is it that I need to do to improve the quality of this mask? Well, first off, I don't like the bitty edges. The edges are too bitty, so first thing we're going to do is add a little bit of the feathering radius and a little tiny bit of a blurring radius. That feathering radius might be a little bit on the large side. We'll get it down to about 1.8. And then what I'm going to do is just play with mask opacity, and there we go, and a little bit of extra mask contrast. And these little grey bits, we won't really see much of an effect of them being missing from the selection in the actual image itself. So let us now turn the mask visibility off, and let's come out to a fit to screen view, and let's scroll on up, and we have got color balance RGB, which is the module we've been working in all this time, and we will turn it off, and then we will turn it back on again, and you can see the effect we've had on the flowers. So what I'm going to do is control click on the header of the module, and I'm going to type flowers, just like that, and hit return. I am now going to come and add a new instance of color balance RGB, and we are going to control click, and we are going to put as a header in there greens, so we know what we're doing. Okay, now this color balance RGB greens is actually above in the pixel pipe. It is actually above color balance RGB flowers. So basically that mask that we have just made of those flowers, we can hand off to the greens color balance RGB in the form of a raster mask, an internal raster mask. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to link back to earlier videos. Now I know 2 of the earlier videos are on external raster masks, and we are not talking about external raster masks, we are talking about internal ones, because we're only dealing with parametrics at the minute, and so we can't hand parametrics over with the mask manager because the mask manager doesn't see parametrics. So what we are going to do is open color balance RGB, and before we do anything we're going to click on raster mask, and we're going to scroll down, and where it says no mask used, you see I can see color balance RGB flowers. Yes, I can. How cool is that? So what we will do is go and turn on the visibility of the mask, and then we will change the polarity of the mask, and now I've got every pixel in the image selected apart from the flowers. How cool is that? Tell you, Darktable, powerful beyond belief, and so simple once you get your head around Darktable logic. We're going to turn off the visibility of the mask, okay, and we are going to lift up a little bit of global brilliance in the shadows, a little bit in the midtones. You see how we're getting these glossy effects on the leaves now. I'm not going to bother with the highlights, but what I am going to do is I'm going to increase global saturation just a little bit, increase global chroma just a little bit, and then increase the global vibrance just a little bit. And so we've got some quite nice poke going on. And let's go and have a look at all this at 100%. And is this all looking right? Yes, we can see we've got noise in there, but yeah, I don't think that's looking too bad at all. I can't see any obvious errors in there, So I'm rather liking what I'm seeing just through such a simple adjustment. I mean, it's crazy, the simplicity of it all. So we are looking quite nice there. What I'm going to do now is come over and just turn on local contrast. Ooh, that looks quite nice. But you can see we've now got blue bits. Okay, we don't want any blue bits because blue bits are clipping in the shadows. So what we're going to do is come to parametric masks, and how are we going to get at the shadows? It's really simple, or is it? Because you can see we're in LAB here and we don't want to be in LAB. So we come to the little hamburger icon up here and we switch this out to RGB scenery third. Now we've got our usual assemblage of scenery third parametric channels to choose from, and we are going to choose JZ, because if you remember, JZ is black, white, grey, brightness. Yeah, and we will activate said mask, and then what we're going to do is remove the darker bits, a little bit like that. Let's put some nice feather on there with the ramp here on the input output sliders, and we will come down and I think we will just add quite a bit of feathering radius to that as well, but it will keep some sharp definition in some well defined edges, and we can turn that mask visibility off, and I don't think that's looking too bad at all. See, clipping indicators are still on, we've got no clipping warning. So let's just have a look. This is where we started, this is where we've got so far. Right, now then, if I come back to light table, and here is our raw file that we're working on at present, and all I'm going to do is go to history stack and I'm going to go to copy, and we're going to come to this DNG and we are going to go paste. Right, so that's the image that was denoised outside of Darktable. Right, and as you can see, it's gone sort of a funny colour, but what we need to do is to come all the way down to white balance and go and set the white balance to where it's supposed to be, which is cloudy, and where are we? There we go, cloudy 5 Mara. Now you can see we've got one or two little tiny bits of clipping. That's all due to how the image adjustments from the raw file have actually gone on to the DNG, which has been processed in DxO's Pure Raw 5. So it's not quite right, but let's just have a look, because the important clip would be luminosity. Darktable is a little bit overly conservative when it comes to defining what is actually going to be clipping the gamut of the output colour profile, which we've actually got set up to Pro Photo. You watch this. If I go to the clipping indicators and I right click and I change from full gamut to luminance only, there you go. So I've actually got no gamut clipping, and I haven't got any luminosity clipping or luminance clipping or brightness clipping to begin with. Now what I can do, if we look up here in the old histogram, you can see we are very close, and what's put it very close is this local contrast. So what I'm going to do is, if you just look, we're just about touching the top dotted line in the waveform, and all I'm going to do is just pull the highlights down a little smidge, Okay, and now I'm not touching them quite as much as I was before. That is pretty much sorted. Now what I'm going to do in a moment is to go back to the raw file, and I'll try and show you how I would dual denoise this just with Darktable's denoise, for those of you who can't use DxO Pure or won't. So all that's left for me to do really is to sharpen this image, but the only real place I want it sharpening is the flowers, yeah? So I'm going to continue to work just temporarily on this DNG, and I'm going to come over to here, and I'm going to get my contrast equalizer up, and I'm going to make me oofily doofily, my control point quite small, and I'm just going to lift up there and add a nice lot of sharpening into the flowers. That's possibly a little bit too much. Pull it down, then lift it up there, maybe a little tiny smidge, and yeah, I think that looks quite nice, but I only want it on the flowers. Now I could go and make a new parametric mask to select the flowers only, but of course it's already been made, so can we go and pull it up here? No, we can't. Ooh, what's going on there then? Right, so if I come back to what's on and shut down or collapse local contrast, I'm trying to make an adjustment here, okay, in contrast equalizer, but you can see that contrast equalizer is lower down the pixel pipe than color balance RGB flowers, where the mask that I want is residing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move contrast equalizer above color balance RGB, and I've moved it above both instances. We will not suffer any image degradation penalty on this particular image, but when you start swapping modules in the pixel pipe, don't just do it willy-nilly. You've got to watch what you're doing. Well, what does the image actually look like at least 100% magnification, and you need to check all across the image. Right, so now I've got the contrast equalizer masking panel open, but I've moved it above color balance RGB, where the proper mask actually resides. I can go and select color balance RGB flowers, and there we go. Check the mask, and it's only applying to the flowers. Ooh, how good's that, eh? Yeah. Okay, so there is our image pretty much completed. Now if I come back to our raw file, okay, and I'm just going to just make sure we are back where we're supposed to be. So what is it I'm going to do now? I want to, since it's back on the raw file, I just want to give you a rough idea of how you can dual denoise with the old parametrics. Right, so how are we going to do this? First of all, we need to come to where are we? Denoise profiled, and let's turn it on, and let's go in to 100%, and let's turn it off, and you can see the noise. Let's turn it back on again. Okay, and for a lot of people that would actually do. I'm going to change from wavelets to non-local means, and that will get rid of more noise, yeah. But quite simply, I do not want to see that level of denoise in the flowers. I don't. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go to parametric masks, no mask used, can't be working in there, can I? Can't be doing that. So what we've got to do, because denoise is right down low in the pixel pipe, I'm not prepared to put that up above colour balance RGB. I'm not going to do that. So what we are going to have to do is go and remake that mask again. This is why when I showed you how to do parametric masks in the first place in video 1 of the masking in Darktable series, this is why I suggested you always did them on the exposure module, even though you weren't doing any exposure, because if you do them on the exposure module, they will go on pretty much every other module there is inside of Darktable. So what are we going to do? It's going to be a piece of cake to do. We're going to come into parametric masking, and we're just going to go to CZ, and we're going to turn on the visibility of the mask, and we are only going to select the most saturated colours, which, as we already know, are the yellows. We've got a pretty good saturation mask there, and we'll do that. And guess what we're going to do? Yeah, we are just going to invert it. Okay, and we're going to turn the visibility of the mask off, and now we've got that level of denoise, profile denoise, which, don't forget, we switched out to non-local means, and as you can see, we've got it everywhere in the background, the out of focus bits, but we haven't got it in the flowers. So what we are now going to do is go to a new instance of denoise profiled, and what we're going to do now is I'm going to switch that back out again to non-local means, but I am going to come into the parametric masking, and first of all I'm going to turn it down. Okay, and we'll turn the opacity of the noise reduction down to probably around about 50-51%, like that. And then what are we going to do? We're going to do that on a parametric mask, and we can do it on denoise profiled, but we need to check the mask, and you can see it's inverted, it's the wrong way around. So what we need to do is change its polarity, and there you go. So what we've now done is two separate denoising operations, one on the background and one on the foreground. Okay, now we could in actual fact go and put some sharpening on there, but really and truly, and I don't think we need to. So there you go, there's two different methods of doing a denoise, purely driven by a parametric mask or an inversion of pretty much the same parametric mask. How cool is that? Come on guys, it's really super simple. Listen guys, I hope that's been useful to you. Hope you found it useful, hope you found it interesting. Okay guys, that's me, I'm done. Like I say, give it a thumbs up, give it a like, leave a nice comment below, share it if you want to, and until the next time, stay safe, stay well, keep taking the pictures, and I'll speak to you soon. Yeah, I will. See ya!